Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an after-play show. This is an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, where we tell you all the details of our game, so you don't have to listen to it. Hi, I'm Sammie, I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Asiri Omoli, the Hope of the Abyss. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I play the Malboro Juice and his mule companions, the Smogs. All of us use he, him pronouns.
And we are joined today by Daniel!
Hey everyone, my name's Daniel. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the game master for this campaign.
Welcome! Thank you for joining us today. Now that we're all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, WorldCorps meets Dude Fiery, one of Blobby's TV sludge cook competitors. Film crew behind them, they speak to a man on the street, a grease person, Travolta. They learn more about mutagenic sludge from Travolta and Dude before Smog scares Travolta off with mention of the governance. Dude drives WorldCorps to the engine in his hot rod. They run into the Cult of Velocity, the motorcyclist from the World of Motion, hunting the governance and trying to find the Manticore. They agree to go separate ways to investigate and keep in touch. They find the engine, but its oppressive heat leads them to find refuge in the world of the lost. After balancing a golden scale with rabbits, they claim the diamond brain and take it to the Master. In the park, everything is covered in purple ooze. The Master grants WorldCorps Teddy's heart to stitch in, allowing them life outside the world of the lost. The Master takes their brain, passes on the WorldCorps, and ends the world of the lost. The party and Dude are set back in the world of assembly.
Now that you've heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into the session. We are introduced to perhaps one of the most fascinating non-player characters I've ever encountered in a tabletop role-playing game, Dude Fiery, and their flamin' hot rod.
One of the core inspirations for this world has sort of become clear. Setting this up, I was like, we've never done anything like a cooking show before, so might as well have equivalents of some celebrity chefs. Dude Fiery is a mutant analog to Guy Fieri, but this time the flames are real.
I think that's just Guy Fieri. He's just in this, mutated world. I think we actually found him.
Oh, man.
So when are we going to meet Gorgon Ramsheep?
Ooh.
So, I will not lie. The idea has crossed my mind, especially with things like Hell's Kitchen analogies. We shall see.
Dude is played by the lovely Michael.
Yes, we have our favorite guest NPC back for a new role. I ran this idea, so do you want to play a kind of diesel punk mutant Guy Fieri? And they were just like, sign me right up.
If there was any other answer besides I'm busy and can't do it, then what the hell happened to Michael that I know and love? This person literally threw a Guy Fieri party.
I had a feeling that he would be the right person for the job, and so far he's not let me down. He's going to be able to pick this up for another session.
That's also why Michael is not here today. We want to conclude the Dude saga before we have them on.
Working with Michael's great. During the session, he'll DM me ideas. They're always great. We have a plot. Based on what you all have done, we're going to see how much we can see through for the next session.
Of course, Guy Fieri's famous for his classic muscle cars, convertible, whatever. So we've got Dude Fiery rolling up in the most obnoxious hot rod you've ever seen. And then he introduces himself. I'm traveling from out of town. My name's Dude Fiery, and I'm looking for the best engines, chambers, and pipes.
They go to showcase how other people do their sludge cooking, spotlighting maybe lesser known chefs.
This also is some sort of TARDIS car because it fits all 50 of the crew in, and I don't think we described it as an apartment or something.
I am curious how many people you think it takes to film one of these shows.
They don't make them like they used to.
I guess. They really need multi-camera sludge action.
Yeah, you have to have the close-up. They're mixing the slimes.
We are introduced to Dude's signature giant swirly straw.
I've given Michael the appearance and some of the background stuff, but left the improvisation pretty open. One of the things that was established is that Dude Fiery has just a really long curly straw to slurp things with. be it sludge or what have you.
As a sludge drinker is what to do.
Yeah.
Sludge drinkers gotta drink the sludge. That's how that works. Dude presents that they're looking for the engine, but they don't know where it is. But in the brief conversation we have a little bit later with Travolta, when Siri asks about the engine, this guy it doesn't even answer the question because it feels like it should be like asking what down is what they said.
Yeah.
If it's that important, how do you not know where/what it is?
This is something that we're probably going to learn more about soon. As the session progressed, Michael and I came to some conclusions about what Dude Fiery's doing. We're going to see next time about answering some of those questions.
Secret governance spy!
No! I'm so tired of this shit.
So how does real Guy Fieri feel about Blobby Flay? Because dude hates Blobby.
Any similarities to people, living or dead, are purely coincidental.
Right, sure.
I can't comment on this world's Guy Fieri. Blobby Flob and Dude Fiery are not enemies per se, but they are rivals.
Now I'm just imagining, like, Ratchet Rays or something.
Instead of Rachel Ray?
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for possibility here.
Live on the Grease Network.
The Grease Network.
They don't even have screens. It's like broadcasted to puddles of ooze.
That's nasty, dude.
It's diesel punk, so everything's combustion engine based, for sure. It's not like it's primarily electronic technology. There's generators going on everywhere.
Beautiful.
Dude is also looking for this engine. Apparently it's the next scope for their next episode of their show. We decided to tag along with them because, hey, at least they're a resident of this world. Perhaps they know something we don't. And we get the bright idea to start chatting with the locals, and maybe they have some insight, which is when Asiri rushes over to a grease person. And this person is entirely made out of grease. They have two little beady googly eyes, and their mouth rips open from their body, which is gross to think about, but I love that. And apparently their name is Travolta.
That's my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, this was not someone that I had a rich lore behind before the session, but I did have the concept for the grease people down. They seem like they can't mutate with the sludge as easily as others can, non-grease people. They still like to drink the sludge, but they don't change as a response to it.
The other half of this population is more people like Dude and Blobby, which are like horribly mutated, half mech, half bio, whatever people.
Yeah.
Bionicles.
Bionicles!
Now,
we're here! We've come full circle again!
We're here, we're family.
Olive Garden?
I don't think Dude has many mechanical components to them. There are some that are more primarily organic.
Sure, but Blobby is definitely partially mechanic.
After some initial back and forth with Travolta, we learned some of this information, like you can change by drinking the sludge. They're drinking a can of oil, and they finally notice Dude in the background.
Dude Fiery's a celebrity. Grease people, they'll probably know about him. They'll probably know about Blobby Flob, for example. One of the first people to accost one of these grease persons was Asiri.
Travolta's like, whoa, nice kit, you look freaking weird. And Asiri's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you.
People here view mutations as partly kind of like a status symbol, but also this coincides with the consumer product. So if you look very unique, you probably had some really nice sludge.
Yes and no. Asiri has wonderful slime.
You did give a sample of that.
That's true. But
That was pretty good.
the rest of this world is making Asiri's skin crawl, quite literally.
We also get into a little the reason that Travolta is wowed and thinks about this is like designer and consumer is people like Dude and Blobby cook up the sludge for specific effect.
You could call it a type of flavor. This substance can be very unpredictable. If you prepare it in the right way, you can direct it. Tao decided to go for a sip. We determined together that they grew some pretty sweet-looking horns in response to this.
Horns changed into flames, like Dude's.
God, Travolta is just completely enamored by the fact that a dude fiery notable celebrity is here, so immediately assumes the rest of the party is a bunch of celebrities because we look so fucking kitted out, quote unquote, that there's no other explanation for that.
He also seems to have very little understanding of what music is, because we claim to be a band.
The concept of food made a lot of sense to these people, but music didn't. Later on, Dude Fiery played some version of music in their car, but it's almost completely dissonant.
Travolta pulls a pizza out of their backpack. How is there pizza here when there is no water?
You didn't ever ask what the pizza was made out of.
That's true.
In this world, pizza is its own resource, and it's pretty valuable at it.
But yeah, this piece of pizza gets signed by Dude, which is insane.
Although I feel like if I went up to Guy Fieri and was like, hey man, would you sign my pizza? I feel like he would do it.
I guess this world is somewhat outlandish.
While we're here, I just have to pick your brain, Alex, because by process of elimination, this has to be the world for Smog.
Yes.
I see the designer, I see the status quo of celebrity, I see corruption and pollution and all those ties back to Smog. What else here is ringing true to you?
Ingenuity, scientific advancement, and applying that for all the wrong things. That's definitely a part of what happens in Smog's world, and Smog is not innocent completely in that respect either.
Specifically in Smog's version of that type of Final Fantasy universe, I wanted to capture some aspects about how people related to each other.
It seems like there could be, although we haven't seen much of it yet, be a caste system between the Grease people and the people who are able to more easily mutate.
Yeah.
Because the only people that we've talked to that have been mutated are celebrities, and the only person that we've talked to as a Grease person was a man on the street.
Yeah, that's true.
These people drink gasoline, guys.
I wanted a departure from the types of living creatures that we're used to. In pretty much each of these worlds, there's still been an aspect that was still very grounded. I wanted to really flip it on its head for once, and this one was the lucky.
How did you feel when I was joking about there being a world of food?
Oh my god.
I was about to say, it was like one hell of a called shot, too.
That's why I could not help myself with saying that it might be a little bit closer than you'd expect.
I love this scene here where Asiri gives Travolta some of her slime, and both Dude and Travolta are discussing the artistic merit of the slime and how it's different from the sludge that they're used to.
They're talking about the flavor profile.
It's salty. I wonder why.
Dude Fiery stuck out their long curly straw and slurped it up from Travolta's hand.
Like some sort of butterfly.
I like to believe that that's how he processes the taste and everything, and once it actually gets to his lips, it doesn't matter.
That could be.
Conversation here turns from, okay, you're making weird slime/sludge. What really are you? And, I don't know, Asiri's just vague about it.
So I was just like, we're about to connect things. Yeah, we basically are aliens. You called it.
In this world, pretty much everyone knows about sludge.
Smog takes us a step further and starts warning about the governance.
And scares the living grease out of Travolta.
They weren't super thrilled about the idea of people coming in and killing people. And even though that's not what you were doing, you definitely instilled a sense of terror.
Oh, you know, the aliens arriving shortly before the attack to warn of the attack.
It's a lot to unload on someone.
Especially just literally a random guy on the street. Not like a government leader, like a scientist or some shit.
I also got to continue my implication that Smog has been trying to warn people and they don't take him seriously.
It's very possible.
Blobby Flob just completely writes him off, doesn't remember anything Smog has said out of the government. I've been trying to tell you about this for ages.
We buckle into Dude Fiery's hot rod and start moseying down to Flavortown. And by Flavortown, I mean the interstate.
I wanted the highways to feel like fuel and exhaust lines in a car engine. There's valves that segment different chambers. And in some ways, it actually also kind of behaves like a heart. It's almost as if you're traveling in a small part of a massive system.
We're in Osmosis Jones, guys.
Oh my god.
It is kind of an Osmosis Jones scenario.
It is incredibly organic while being so mechanical and disgusting at the same time. It's filth.
It's filth as we see it, right? But people of this world are relatively comfortable and happy with the scenario, by and large. Obviously, Smog thinks it's hell. I invite that because that makes it less a monolith. But for most people here, they're satisfied with this. Even though it's, at least for us, a very toxic, dangerous place. Uncomfortable, even.
I'm just happy we get to road tripping because it is very specific Final Fantasy, but it's one of the parts I like most about that game that I have some mixed feelings on.
What, you mean the boys road trip the game? Is it your favorite one?
No, but it's nowhere near my least favorite either.
I was gonna say we were able to emulate at least part of that feel in the World of Motion too, which was something that I was very happy about. You had the big car.
While we're cruising along, we run into the motorcycle gang from the World of Motion. We finally get a chance to talk of them. They're the Cult of Velocity.
This is while Dude Fiery was recklessly driving on through the highways. This was a conversation while you all were moving at a pretty good clip. But Smog made a code of noise cancellation so that y'all could talk to each other.
The feline fairy mech that Smog has been using has one giant speaker, so that's what he used to blast out his noise cancellation.
I like how magic in this world for Smog is very technological. That's something that we have not had as much in this game that we did in the previous one.
Smog also mentioned, because Asiri was concerned about her and Pony possibly getting in contact with the sludge, that he loaded up the mech with a bunch of spell work, so
yeah,
we'll see what that means later. I think it would probably be pretty obvious, but hopefully we'll see it.
Yeah,
some kind of inhibitor for this very caustic material.
It's not great.
What were your thoughts seeing them, of all people, in this place?
It makes sense because how they look and the aesthetics of this place go hand in hand. But I know these bikes don't seem to give off any sort of pollution, so they're from a different place. But for like a third of a second, I was like, were they really from here and then somehow ended up in the World of Motion? They somehow got warped into here while they were apparently looking for the Manticore, which went missing.
This was another instance that I was able to make a move as hard as I wanted to, so this was someone being captured.
Gee, I wonder where the Manticore is.
We saw it around Blobby's, and Smog says when he gets a chance he'll review security logs, so
yeah,
we'll see. Wait, is the Manticore originally from here, and that's how the Manticore got the mutations to become Manticore?
That's a very good question. I'm really glad that we got a chance to talk with these people. Like, it's very akin to a religious fervor for speed, for moving at full throttle, to show everyone the wonders of traveling fast.
Tao talks about trying to keep in contact with them, and they're like, haha, comms devices. The signals would never keep up with our speed.
Yeah, a little potty. People that would happily volunteer to relay a message personally if it meant having to travel to a location in a short amount of time.
As happy as we are to see the Cult of Velocity again, they do give us some sad news in that Sir Mizzle has passed away from his wounds during the last encounter with the governance.
During that fight, Pony connected the World of Motion back and opened up an entrance into the configuration itself. So you all didn't see the end of that encounter. You left once you had connected the WorldCorps, basically. It brought all of you along with it, which was unintentional, but it meant that the governance, they didn't disappear with you. They were still there. And as we can see, they eventually left. Some of them wound up here in the World of Assembly, and the Cult of Velocity kind of followed after.
Now I wonder if the Cult of Velocity was fast enough to follow the governance in, or if Smog sent them in and they've been here not as long. We didn't really ask about that.
Who knows? Maybe the cult does. Maybe they're not telling. Maybe you have to be inducted to know their secrets.
They don't want to break time. They won't talk to Smog about Smog.
Yeah.
We finally do get them comms through Geyser smashing her foot on the road while the car's moving and pulling up a duplicate of her shoe that is a phone receiver.
Her shoe that is also just her foot.
Also, while that conversation was going on, Tao elected to make a link with them so that they'll be able to communicate back and forth with.
We sent the Cult of Velocity on their way. We decided to split up, and they're scavenging for the Manticore, and they're going to get in contact with us if they see any more governance drones or if something happens. And dude turns on the worst music, sounds known to man and beast, i.e. glass breaking, screaming on the radio. Awful. And we descend further and further deep into the heart of this world. And we park outside of an ominous archway that has glowing orange, and it's very hot. So hot, in fact, that it's starting to affect a Siri's water bubble. Very concerning. And Siri strongly agrees with Smog's assertion that this is in fact hell, now that she knows what it is.
I immediately went to, let's see if we can get something from the Master in the World of the Lost to help with this, which eventually becomes nothing. But Smog does convince everyone else to go to the World of the Lost to get out of this terrible situation.
I'm having fun because Asir's having a miserable time. And I love it when my characters are miserable because that's when fun things happen. But at the same time, part of me is like, I could just morph into abyss form and not have to deal with the problems of being biological. But at the same time, I love the threat that risks, so I'm not going to do it.
I love being able to pepper in, because I wouldn't have a reason to do this except for explaining, like, Smog thinks this is hell. Smog has explicitly said, like, I'm not physically here. I don't have to deal with this.
And Asir's like, I'm about to join you if this keeps
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, like, with a series is highlight the bodily response to the external environment, because Siri is one of the most physical of the party members. Pony, to an extent, also has a lot of that going on. For the others, it kind of depends. I always like when a character has that physicality to them, where when I'm describing things, I can also describe how they feel, what they feel themselves doing in that sort of environment, because I feel like that layers on a whole nother level of imagery. So hot that Asir's bubble starting to simmer, for example.
It's not great. We are in shark stress behavior territory. Prepare for some irrational acts.
Oh, good. Love irrational actions.
She's very scrungled right now. It's not good for her.
To get everybody to the World of the Lost, including Dude.
Oh, yeah.
Juice lets out a bad breath.
Gross.
This is another one of those times where we elected to have a portal bring someone to the World of the Lost, taking Dude Fiery on quite a wild ride. A place they probably would have never conceived of otherwise.
We had to have a Michael character go to the World of the Lost.
It's true. When you propose that, I'm like, oh, but, we have Dude Fiery here. I really don't want Michael to have nothing to do during all that. But I think that's about the best way that could have gone.
The party, along with Dude, wakes up in the World of the Lost, and it's a big golden scales of justice sort of scale on a marble platform. And inside the little scales is 12 little bunny babbits on one side and the diamond brain of the Master on the other.
In retrospect, the aesthetic does feel very much like a dungeon from Persona 4. But
and
you're right. I will not apologize.
I mean, that's the whole concept of the World of the Lost, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. For this one, I did want it to be a little bit simpler.
Traditional RPG puzzle in which we cannot disturb the balance of the scale lest the room/world fall apart or to chaos around us.
I haven't done a huge amount with puzzle design in this game.
It stands in quite stark opposition to the world that it's connected to. It seems rather clean and placid here, whereas the world of Assembly is chaotic and nasty. I feel like it fits that theme very well compared to the other ones. Probably not my favorite, but it's not my least favorite either because it's so simple. Like, it's elegant, it gets its point across, and I see what it's trying to say. I feel like we either, because it was so simple, we missed something, or I'm overreading the situation.
How so?
I don't know. That's why I'm leaving it open.
I have some thoughts that are similar.
Yeah, please.
But I think we'll be able to explain that better after we get through a little bit more. Oh, I do want to say, before we get too much further on, in this World of the Lost, Smog and Juice look like HD 2D pixel art because I wanted to pump up the idea that Smog is virtually there along with the robot physical side.
I was so glad for that. Ever since you described for me like some of the games that Smog was kind of inspired from, especially for the visual design, I've wanted to play around with a game UI and look for Smog and Juice.
The puzzle here, very obvious. We have to balance the scale and remove the brain. So we get into like a little bit of discussion back and forth, and the series like, well, Smog, why don't you time freeze the scales? And Smog's just like, we could just stand under them and hold them up.
Part of that was Juice is able to speak to these rabbits because of a new move I took, Animal Talks, from the Familiar, right?
Yeah.
So Juice had created a camaraderie with these rabbits. I don't want to time stop them. That's sad. And then part of that is like, I want more hands on the ball here. Tony and Geyser hadn't been able to do as much yet. Tao was the one mostly in conversation with the Cult of Velocity. So having them physically do something would be good. Plus, like, I don't know if we would be able to like move everything while things are time stopped. I don't know.
I'm kind of glad it went about that way because I didn't have like a single, this is the only way that this could be solved.
Yeah.
I rather wanted to approach it from something that's more open, like you could probably tackle this in a number of different ways.
You did present a series with a knight's sword, a towering hourglass, and an angelic feather. All of these objects mean nothing to her. So she was like, my friends are very powerful. Let me turn to them. As a player, my brain was like, oh, let's just put like Breath of the Wild stasis on the scales so it can't move. And then we can move around it. But
we probably could have rolled around that. I am happy with kind of how it turned out with everyone sort of helping each other to solve this, especially with a lot of consideration for the little Brenny Babbits.
Although Siri did ask to eat them when we got here.
Okay, maybe mostly consideration for that.
Listen, she knows a prey animal when she sees one.
Yeah, they do have eyes on the sides of their head, so...
Juice was holding up Geyser on one end, and Asiri was holding Dude on the other, and because they're both also very strong, we're holding up the scales on their own. And then Pony was catching rabbits that Ty was throwing, because Juice had asked the rabbits if they would like a ride.
Yeah. A good convincing argument for a fun ride to be thrown to the other scale.
A lovely affair.
We had some push through stress rolls. We had, I think some people might have cast magic or what have you. Not too difficult to accomplish once you all sort of figured out how you wanted to go about it. You all had liberated the brain from one of the scales, balancing out both sides with the same amount of bunnies.
We transfer the rabbits over. Smog cast float on everyone standing in the scales and the brain so that the weight would be balanced the second we let go from the bottom. And carry the brain off the scales. Assyria reaches out and grabs it. No sooner did everything balance out and everyone was like, okay, we're fine, everything's cool, did we hear a horrendous slurping sound, and Dude was trying to suck up the brain with his straw.
Michael sent me a message during the session while you all were like puzzling this out, just asking me, can I slurp the brain? I was like, of course you can slurp the brain. go for it. Obviously, it seemed like to be a pretty impressive looking material, so how could a sludge connoisseur like Dude Fiery possibly pass up the opportunity to sample it?
The series like, please don't do that.
It was not to be allowed.
It's not yours. It's not really ours either.
Here's where we can probably talk about some confusion with the puzzle, because for me, we never played with those three things you gave us.
Yeah.
And I feel like toying with those could have given us extra insight to what was going on.
Yeah, that would have been definitely a chance for me to allow you to at least understand if you did this is probably what would happen. A lot of this was sort of on the spot, and I didn't want it to be like, you have to exactly do this set of things. More so just pose a type of obstacle that you need to work together to figure out, I suppose.
Sometimes you can ignore mythology and rely on the help of your friends to get tasks done.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the message. The World of the Lost is a very difficult place to find answers in. It's more of a repository for things that have been removed. For example, the shades of outlines of people that were all over that place that upon closer inspection you saw were kind of all over the area. It's now just, I guess, going to be left as sort of a mystery.
People's lost forms from before being mutated, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my brain went.
We usually go around the, like, halfway to 3/4 way mark through the world to the World of the Lost. And we've made a big deviation here where we're going to have to know what was in the World of the Lost and have that inform how we continue interacting with the world rather than using it to solve that last bit that we need to figure out what the hell's going on.
Which is fun, because it mixes it up here. Once we're back in possession of the brain, the bus with Teddy Valentine arrives. Valentine's got cute little cupid wings, and they have their bow again. And they're excited to see us, and we report in that we have the final organ.
I wanted to bring back the bus in particular because everything was so close to being fully connected together in the World of the Lost. The organ was in your possession. You were bringing it to Teddy, so the sort of mysterious nature of how Teddy's even able to get there is a little bit more obvious. It's almost similar to going back to any of these other parts of the World of the Lost, like you all have done before.
But yeah, since the bus is here, nothing left to do with these rabbits. We all pile in and go and see the master.
You all decide to immediately go to the master to get that organ back. When you all do, you arrive back in the city park, but it's just covered everywhere with the master's sort of purple essence. Still, you could like determine like the shapes of things, even the shapes of people walking through the park, but it's just all covered in that same material. What was going through your heads when I was sort of describing this?
Sagged. It was very sad. I was like, oh no, something critical is about to happen here.
I was honestly too busy laughing at myself because I had the fucking sprites thinking about Smog entering and exiting the bus, like, not in 3D, like fucking Paper Mario character.
Just flipping 180 degrees to turn around. God, every time you describe for me like Smog looking somewhere, it's just like a little pixel
One pixel
moving. Or like giving a thumbs up, it's like a little block just pops up. A little square.
Nodding, the whole head just moves up and down one square.
I'm so sad that we might not see much more of that. I guess it sort of depends.
The master pulls themselves together. Tentacle forms out of the purple goo.
I specifically wanted to start with a simple tendril coming out of what's now the ground, essentially asking for the brain. You all, rightfully so, seemed a little apprehensive at that moment. You all were very much considering, like, if we give this final organ to the master, like, is Teddy going to be okay?
Yeah, because the master made the point of giving us the little heart first, and, like, obviously Assyria knows that they're not lying about anything, but it's still hard to comprehend that the master knows what's going on, even when they have their brain back, like, exactly how everything's going to work.
If you give the master, like, their organ back, how will things turn out? Well, does the master, like, fully know?
There are, like, two ways this could go, right? Or I guess three. One, we give them the brain back, and then the world just disappears entirely. Because we know that the World of the Lost is going to disappear once this is done. That's what the master wanted. That's what they told us up front. Two, hand them the brain. Boss music starts playing. Or three, the master's going to, like, drop some, like, crazy life-altering knowledge. But the result of this will make them forget their past promises to us. So I was like, okay, Assyria would want to make sure that our business with Teddy and everything here is done first. So that's why I was like, let's take care of this before you get your brain back. Because you do technically owe us for that. We're waiting until this moment.
I had the master show up in this scene, not as their usual, like, goopy self, but rather the composite innards that they had lost, for lack of a better word, that had been removed from them, presenting as a combination of completely non-anatomical skeleton and the visible organs, which you all had found, a moving representation of the work that you've all done in the World of the Lost. I wanted to give them at least a deeper tone, almost hungry to finally have their final organ back because it's so close. Their interactions were definitely forceful. Was definitely not the intention just to set up a betrayal. You all could have fought the Master if you wanted to, but that probably would have not been a very good fight.
No.
I've described to Sammie that the Master's probably the most potent entity that you all have come across because their situation relates to whether or not things can exist in a conscious world. It's definitely not one to just have a simple boss battle.
Yeah, that's why I was like, let's get our ducks in a row before we finalize anything here. We don't know what's gonna happen. This brain could make him go crazy.
I did, as usual, I wanted the Master to feel at least a little unhinged, but I guess in this case, I wanted them to feel a little dangerous as well. Talking about the fact that you all had an agreement with each other.
Very upset that we weren't as trusting as we could have been.
The Master even mentions the fact that they're throwing not only Teddy, but also their essence, their being, because that's what you wanted, in what they called a 2-for-1 deal, quote, because you all were such good friends.
Weeping, sobbing, screaming. God. We learn that, of course, Teddy is just a typical stuffed animal, but once we put this fabric heart back into them, then they will reanimate and have the personality that we once knew.
The Master sort of provided you with a way to skirt around what the effects were, because Valentine, they were not only a lost teddy bear, but also they were an imaginary friend. They were a companion of sorts. That's why Teddy has been able to go between these different places before the Master could, and it's why that was usually done with a bus. That is what Valentine was left behind on. In the world of the Lost, they exist in a sort of liminal space, able to move between these other sort of fragmented parts of it.
Having lost so many things in transit, I get it. It hurts. Why are you hurting me?
Here in the garden, let's play a game.
The World of the Lost, it embodies a lot of different concepts of loss, how we can lose things. The inhabitants, they are without even some of their own original context. It exists as a raw expression of stuff that maybe once was. I always enjoyed imagining what different aspects of this world would be like.
Am I allowed to cry now?
You're not allowed to cry. You have to put on a brave face.
We give the Master their brain back. They open up their skull, insert the brain back in, and they give us the final WorldCorps.
There's two really interesting things from my perspective that they say, I think, after this point. Well, actually, there's three things. One, that we each have a piece of the WorldCorps. We learned that before.
Yes.
But Dude is with us. Was he talking to Dude as well?
I see what you're saying.
Yes. Two, there seems to be some sort of intentionality in bringing this group together.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets my wee-woo sirens going.
Yeah. I was about to say, is this the time to put on our tinfoil hats, everybody, and enter the conspiracy zone?
This is a session that I can only say so much outside of the session.
I can get back into the Tonyverse. In the original interstitial games that I ran, there was a person named Tony who was simulating different worlds coming together to see how they would work, see how people enjoyed that. This eventually evolved into Zach's game, where people were being asked if they would like to leave their world and enter the simulation, and when they were done with the simulation, if they would like to keep their memories. For those versions of Tony, a more ethical version of the experiment. What could be going on here is that there is a rogue Tony, or they knew that Terra was going to try this and tried to seed it with the right participants.
Yeah, that's where I went. The other thing is, Zach said something at the end of the game session the other day and said, there's been one person who's been pushing us to get this done as quickly as possible, and it's Terra. So I wrote in my notes, there's like 2.5 suspects here, right? So Tony is the obvious one. Whatever powers this hypothetical Tony has behind the veil is yet unknown. If they're in the configuration, if they're outside of the configuration trying to map things out so that things work in their favor, whatever fucking nonsense is going on, that's absolutely where I'm thinking is a stark possibility. But the other thing is, Terra wants so badly to get back to the people that they met that they're willing, in essence, to put their entire planet at risk. And I know that because they have a charm bracelet and their fucking office is filled with paintings of their friends. So the question is, to what extent does Terra know about the actual details? And they've teased this at us by saying, you need to go to the other planet and get my memories back from the data storage bank or whatever the fuck is going on where the barnacle was invented. And I'm just like, why the fuck aren't you just telling us what the initial situation is, madam? Like...
There's also still room for greater powers, and it would work really nicely with all this like god stuff and like mythical power stuff. We've been playing with how mortal do we want to be and how conceptual and powerful do we want to be, because all of the games were exposed to the other, this force that is trying to force people into the boxes of their worlds, and another who is trying to get people to commingle, possibly to the extent that their worlds theoretically don't really exist. Everything is intermingled. Each group fell more on the side of keeping their friends, keeping in contact with other worlds. Could that force actually exist outside of simulation? Could that force be influencing Terra?
Exactly. But this is where I get my like 2.5 person is, what is aura? Right? Because
you
think about it. Like, sure, Terra has the dream, they're the spark. Aura built this.
Yeah.
They've dodged the question almost as much as Terra has on the initial setup. Did they pick us? What is going on here?
I have a little trouble with that one because I feel like Asiri would have picked up on something, especially when they would have to have been playing dumb about a lot of things, especially regarding like the concept of spirituality.
Sure.
They're very science-minded.
I can see that, yeah. It does poke a hole, but there's just something that doesn't ring true, and there's been like 1 or 2 times where their wording has been vague, and it's sort of, they haven't told the whole truth to Asiri, but Asiri's not smart enough or not like informed of the situation to know what to ask, so I can't follow up on it.
There are plenty of suspects, if the master is correct. If we're good on that, conspiracy corner.
I like conspiracy corner.
The third thing is the title drop moment, because for Smog it's not true.
Oh shit. Yeah. The time weirdness.
Fucking time
Snake,
travel!
what have you done? You've created a time paradox.
Smog will see you again.
Yeah.
And again,
Master.
and again, and again. But in this timeline, they're free.
There's no future in this current timeline where the Master will see Smog again.
Yes.
So it's only half true.
I'm so upset with how this interaction went down. Mostly because a lot of it was between the Master and Asiri, and the Asiri being the Abyss, also a really non-Euclidean godlike entity. The Master, an incredibly non-Euclidean godlike entity. Having this conversation and having the exact opposite opinion and feelings about things. And yes, they're both constrained by different systems. The Abyss has always existed and the Master has never existed. But it's just so crushing to have them go back and forth. And like Asiri is like, all right, I know you're going to go now. May I offer you some comfort? Can I give you something intimate? Holding out my hand. The Master's like, don't touch me. No, don't do that. Asiri's like, it would pain me not to be able to contact you again. And the Master's like, I think not. It's time to close down. And Asiri's just like, but why? It's such a joy to exist. This is the greatest pleasure that any entity like us can experience. Life is such a rare and fleeting thing. Even if your body isn't quite living, it's certainly not in the confines of nature and existence. Mind-boggling to her that, yes, this was preordained. Yes, this is how things should be. But is it right?
It's a good question to bring up. The Master, it's not like they're a concept that has existed as long as non-existence has been a thing. They've only been something cognizant for as long as this initial attempt to connect the worlds has been, since the World of the Lost has been accessible. In all respects, they haven't been a coherent idea for a very long amount of time. Being an inaccessible aspect of reality, it was so much more important than any possible joys that can be gleaned by actually existing. The Master sort of explored and even interacted with things in the world of the Lost, making blitzball games or training Juice 2, but they still held on to the fact that it was all sort of wrong. The world of the Lost isn't existence. Despite how much it can be observed and entered into, it is still non-existence. It's just that it's tainted with that aspect that it can be looked into and comprehensible.
It still makes me sad.
Still want Master Friend.
It hurts because of the way Assyria and the Master interacted. First blush, Assyria did not like the Master at all, not trusted at all. They were not how this is supposed to work. But then the Abyss wakes up and they're like, oh no, this was inevitable. This is how it should be. This place shouldn't exist. This place shouldn't be accessible. It shouldn't be tangible in this way. But at the same time, did you not enjoy the time you spent? And I guess the ultimate answer to that was no. That hurts Assyria and the Abyss in a way that I am not eloquent enough to articulate.
I think it's more complicated than not enjoying it. Any enjoyment that the Master could have had in that form necessitated being incomplete. The only way that could have happened is if the Master was not together. It's not enough to sort of justify that, at least in the Master's sort of perspective.
I think the biggest key to that, as far as dialogue for me, was the Master saying something along the lines of, it's funny you've withheld my brain this long, as if we had any way of influencing the order that we were going to get it in, or deciding to just hop between the worlds and get his stuff done first. And that's such a huge part of a person. Like, yes, you are your body. I think that's important for a lot of people to understand. There are parts of you that are bodily lived, but there's a reason people are drawn to I am my brain. There's so much going on in your mind that is also you.
Yeah.
It's ultimately just how things fell into place. You all could have chanced upon this brain potentially in the first World of the Lost that you went to. In a lot of ways, the Master isn't fair. As a matter of fact, they sort of dictated how everything would go. Order didn't matter. They were the only ones to hold the core of that world away from you until they got something in direct exchange. That's unlike anyone else from these different worlds. The Master had always been, in a sense, sort of self-serving, or at least not unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still sad about it. And also the image of the skeleton coming out of the U is haunting me.
Well, as all things, it ends.
Crying, weeping, sobbing.
Emphasized it with the fact that you all lost your links to the Master once you had left. Straight up a place that is inaccessible now. It does not exist as it never existed. It's just now it also can't be traveled to as well.
Yeah. But we still have the memories of the Master, so they're not truly gone.
Despite all of this, you all have memories of your experiences in this world, and those are not gone.
If the WorldCorps isn't good for that, what is the WorldCorps good for?
Come on.
That's also an important question, and what is the point of connecting the world of the Lost if it erases it? It's partly because it's kind of a negative world, in that instead of a connection sort of bringing two places closer together, it sort of restores it into a state where it's separated.
It's also not necessarily true that getting the WorldCorps would mean that the World of the Lost ends. We could have tried to steal it from the Master and doom them to an incomplete existence forever just out of that world. We chose to be as kind as we could be to the Master of the Lost.
Yeah, your party's characteristic sense of attempting a diplomatic solution, almost Paragon, right, to try to appease as many people as possible, that ended up getting the Master at least what they wanted.
It also came with special extra rewards, so...
Yeah, it came, I guess, with kind of a few of them, huh? Definitely changed some things in the worlds that they were part of.
Some very fucked up rewards sometimes.
Yeah, you brought Al-Rayun's body back from the dust.
I feel like I influenced a lot of the rewards decisions just thinking about it.
Which is fine. I'm okay with it. I hope Al-Rayun forgives us.
Back in the world of Assembly. Smog hands over the teddy bear and the heart that he was given to Geyser. This Smog is meant to be in the world of assembly to keep it safe from attack. He is not going to be the one to return Teddy to Susie, even though that's what he asked the Master for. I also, as a player, wanted to give that to Geyser because the world of the Lost is Geyser's, and Teddy is the last remnant of that.
I agree.
Valentine and Geyser probably have a lot more in common than what Geyser alone might realize.
Just to make sure that wasn't just a crazy dream, Asiri screams into the microphone at Aura just to make sure everything got connected as it should be.
Yeah.
Sorry, Aura's eardrums. Apparently all the data did come back, and due to the typical time sort of warp we get leaving the world of the Lost, Aura was just like, hey, I haven't been able to talk to you in like 12 hours. What the hell's going on?
As always, the world of the Lost, it's what I call skipping a night. Y'all used to great effect in the world of Spirit. Still kind of holds true. It's kind of like a version of sleeping. Except now your sleep is going to be a lot more normal.
Good. It's about time. Aura's got all the data, they're sorting through it. Tao informs them that this world is awful, but they drink gasoline, and they don't need a rescue, so we're good. What would y'all have done differently?
I would have stepped in a little bit more with a plot thread that we would all be following. It was still early, so I didn't want to make any decisions like that, but I feel like the momentum of the session would have been a little bit greater if I had come up with some things to maybe drive you all forward, or at least give a little bit more of like a signpost about, I don't know, what you're doing. I left it open. Story direction was decided through our interactive play, so
I wish I had left a little more space for other people to jump in, because I think I'm a little all over this world, because it's like, haha, Smog World time. We're finishing up the world of the Lost. Geyser didn't do much there, and it's like, Geyser, do something.
I understand how you feel.
Yeah, I think my only regret is the same as that. I feel like I could have left more room, but I just had so many questions about shit going on.
Part of it was an unfortunate side effect of us starting to run out of time for our session. Yeah, I do wish at least one more meaningful interaction between Geyser and Master.
It's okay, she'll get to deliver Teddy to Susie.
You're right. You're so fucking right. Let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about the game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Daniel?
Just do it until some chucklefuck finds another way of finding a bridge to my world. Then it's over for you bitches. I don't have any social media, so you can find me drinking sludge by a very hot vent. I'm a little sweaty. I need a shower to get this exhaust off me. But I am having a great time. It tastes very acidic.
And for you, Alex?
Since I've been using every opportunity to talk about HD 2D pixel art Smog, I don't think we mentioned explicitly that Smog and Juice were giving quote bubbles and scrolling through text. You can find me on Blue Sky at Shining Crowbat. This week, I recommend Thirsty Suitors. It is a video game I'm not quite finished with yet. It is primarily an RPG with JRPG-style battles. There are skating segments that you can largely ignore if you don't want to do them, cooking segments that you need to do in order to complete most of the side quests. And the battles aren't too difficult, so don't worry if that's not exactly your genre and you still want to play it, because the story is basically, what if Scott Pilgrim, but a bisexual disaster who has to fight Hronexes and come to an agreement with them instead of turning them into coins?
Wow, I know like nothing about the plot of Scott Pilgrim.
I basically gave you, like, she's fighting Hronexes.
Yeah, I knew that much, but I was like, what? Coin?
We're not allowed to say anything.
Sorry.
Well, this is the recommendation, so that's not the part.
Sorry.
Can we heckle the plugs that people get?
Yeah.
Okay.
As for myself, I think Asiri is going to be hurting for more than one reason. She just lost a friend, and now she's losing all oxygen and water. So good. We're in for a great time with our shark friend here. You can find me deep in the forest, playing mushroom chess with Susie.
Aww.
This has been Resolve, an Afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at ResolveAfterplay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator, Riley Hopkins, at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the episode description.
Thanks again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us what's happening in your game.